Pressure has a way of exposing something essential about us. Place two people in the same demanding situation, facing the same deadline, the same risk, the same consequences, and the results can be strikingly different. One seems to sharpen, becoming more focused and effective. The other tightens up, overthinks, or falters in ways that feel frustrating and confusing. This contrast often leads us to assume that some people are simply good under pressure, while others are not, as though it were a fixed personality trait. In reality, the difference runs deeper, and it is far more flexible than we tend to believe. Pressure itself is not the problem. It is easy to treat pressure as something inherently harmful, something to be eliminated or avoided. But pressure is neutral. It is a signal that something matters, that attention and effort are required. What determines whether pressure becomes fuel or friction is not the situation itself, but how the brain interprets it in the moment. Long before conscious thought catches up, the nervous system is already deciding whether this moment represents a challenge to be met or a threat to be survived. When pressure is interpreted as a challenge, the body still experiences stress, but it is a form of stress that supports performance. Focus narrows in a helpful way. Energy becomes available. Thinking becomes more efficient rather than more chaotic. People in this state often describe feeling alert, engaged, and strangely calm despite the intensity of the moment. When pressure is interpreted as a threat, the same physiological system moves in a very different direction. Attention collapses inward, mistakes feel disastrous, and the mind becomes preoccupied with avoiding failure rather than solving the problem at hand. People who tend to thrive under pressure are not immune to stress. They feel the same racing heart and surge of adrenaline as anyone else. The difference lies in how they relate to those sensations. Instead of interpreting stress as evidence that something is going wrong, they see it as evidence that something important is happening. This subtle shift matters more than it sounds. Research consistently shows that people who view stress as a resource rather than a danger perform better and recover faster, even when the pressure itself remains high. Another factor is the sense of control people feel when facing difficulty. Thriving under pressure does not require believing you can control everything. It requires believing that your actions still matter. People who cope well under pressure tend to focus on what they can influence in the present moment, rather than catastrophizing about outcomes they cannot fully control. This orientation keeps the mind active and problem-focused, instead of frozen by uncertainty. Comfort with discomfort also plays a role. Pressure brings uncertainty, effort, and emotional strain, and people who thrive under it are not necessarily comfortable in the usual sense. They simply do not treat discomfort as a sign of danger. They allow it to exist without rushing to escape it or suppress it. This tolerance creates psychological space, and that space allows clearer thinking. For those who struggle under pressure, the issue is rarely a lack of ability. More often, pressure has become associated with threat through past experience. Harsh criticism, public embarrassment, unpredictable environments, or repeated punishment for mistakes can teach the brain that high-stakes situations are unsafe. Over time, pressure stops being about performance and starts being about protection. When that happens, the nervous system responds not to the task in front of you, but to the emotional memory attached to it. This is why someone can be highly competent in calm conditions and yet fall apart when expectations rise. Their skills have not disappeared. They are simply being overridden by a survival response that prioritizes safety over effectiveness. From the outside, it can look like weakness or lack of confidence. From the inside, it feels like the body has taken over and refused to cooperate. Identity plays a powerful and often invisible role here. When a person's sense of worth is tightly tied to how well they perform, pressure becomes dangerous. A mistake is no longer just a mistake. It becomes a statement about who they are. This turns every challenge into a potential threat to identity, which dramatically raises the emotional stakes. People who perform better under pressure tend to care deeply about outcomes while keeping a psychological distance between performance and self-worth. Failure still hurts, but it does not collapse their sense of who they are. Pressure also has a habit of amplifying whatever habits already exist. It does not create new behaviors, it reveals default ones. Under stress, the brain falls back on familiar patterns. If preparation, reflection, and emotional regulation are well practiced, they are more likely to surface when pressure rises. If avoidance, self-criticism, or panic are the dominant habits, those will take center stage instead. This is why pressure can feel so exposing. It shines a light on systems we may not have realized we were running. The idea that some people are simply born to thrive under pressure is comforting in a strange way because it removes responsibility. But it is also limiting. The ability to function well under pressure is not a fixed trait. It is a skill shaped by interpretation, experience, and nervous system conditioning. It can be strengthened over time, and it can be rebuilt after setbacks. Learning to thrive under pressure does not mean eliminating anxiety or forcing yourself to be fearless. It starts with changing how pressure is understood. Instead of asking how to get rid of stress, the more useful question becomes what that stress is allowing you to do. Gradual exposure to challenge also matters. Confidence under pressure is built through repeated encounters with manageable difficulty, not through one dramatic leap. Each experience teaches the nervous system that pressure can be survived and even used. Perhaps most importantly, thriving under pressure requires a balance between accountability and self-compassion. Harsh self-judgment only reinforces threat responses and avoidance. Responsibility paired with understanding creates learning rather than fear. Over time, this combination changes how pressure feels at a bodily level. Pressure will always be part of life. It cannot be removed without also removing growth, meaning, and ambition. The difference lies in whether pressure sharpens your focus or overwhelms your system. That difference is not determined by personality alone, and it is far more within your influence than most people realize.